This week we're taking a deep dive into the decades of Spider-Man and the Justice League of Tomorrow. Who the hell are they? What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, a show where I go over the comic books coming out on Wednesday, so let's dive in to the independents. The first one that I want to talk about is from Image, and that's Criminal Number 3 from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. So while they did a fantastic job on Kill or Be Killed, and that was a really great series for people that are looking for this kind of gritty, kind of noirish, street-level type crime book, Criminal continues to be that for a lot of different fans. So it's one that I always want to point out to you guys in case that's your kind of book. Then to finish things off with independence, let's talk about Image, and we have Die Number 1 getting its fourth printing. 4 printings for a book essentially about a weird game of Dungeons & Dragons. So this is a comic that I'm going to have to do a little bit more in-depth review on because it's flying under the radar for a lot of people, or at least it used to be. With this 4th printing, that means that a lot of people are going back for new issues, and I think that it's one you guys should really check out. Next, we can work over to DC, where we've got Damage number 15. This book is 1 issue away from cancellation, so expect to see a lot of different storylines getting wrapped up, or planting a few seeds where Damage might appear elsewhere inside the DC universe. However, this is just another one of the kind of like dead books off of DC's New Age of Heroes, and there's not a lot of great news coming out of the July solicits either. So if you like Damage, this is one of your last chances to pick him up. Over at Vertigo from DC, we've got American Carnage number 5 from Brian Edward Hill, which is continuing to be a really interesting tale. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm kind of trade waiting on the first part of this, just so that way I can read everything continuously and see if it's really for me. I had missed out on the beginning issues, and I'm having a hard time finding the ones that I really want to pick up, so that way I can kind of get reinvested. But if you guys have been reading American Carnage, hit me up in the comments down below, and let's have a chat about that. Also from Vertigo, we get High Level number 2, which is telling the tale of this kind of science sewer person, where she has the ability to kind of control these robots, and it's dealing with multiple levels of society. She has some friends that are about to go to High Level, which is taking you into kind of a virtual or perfect reality, whereas she kind of lives in the reality of reality. So it's a book that I really enjoy, at least for the art style. Barnaby Bigenda, who did the Omega Men with Tom King, is just fantastic, and that's the main reason I'm picking the book up. The story still needs to grab me a bit. Also from DC, but it's on the Jinx World imprint, and that is Brian Michael Bendis' Perl number 7. So Perl seemed like a relatively interesting concept, but it's just not something that I'm really looking to pick up right now. It doesn't appeal to me in a lot of different ways. It seemed like an interesting story, but I just can't bring myself to pick it up because it doesn't have enough to quite hook me. But Perl number 7 is coming out, and if you're into it, there you go. Another book from Brian Michael Bendis, though, is Naomi number 3, and Naomi is continuing to kind of evolve inside the DC universe. Last issue, we found out that she now knows kind of who her mom and who her dad are, and she doesn't necessarily have all the information because she hasn't been given any of that. So how are her actual foster parents going to react? How is she going to build this relationship with her father, who turns out to be a mechanic, who's from kind of like outer space, or he's a god, or something along those lines. But Brian Michael Bendis and David Walker are working hard to make Naomi a part of the DC universe, and we'll see if they're successful. Then we can hop over to Aquaman number 46, which is continuing the brand new run of the all-new Aquaman. So I'm interested to see where this one goes. There's a lot of insinuation that in the upcoming issues, Aquaman is going to regain his memories, which is going to play a big role in the overall Aquaman storyline. I don't necessarily know what's going on right now because there was a transition in creative team, and that kind of threw me off the book, and I had to kind of redirect my attention to other titles. But if Aquaman is good, again, comments down below. Let me know that I gotta go grab it and get you guys up to speed. Now that we're pretty much done with DC, we can head over to Marvel, where they have a pretty monstrous week planned as far as releases. Age of X-Men gets 2 new titles in the Amazing Nightcrawler number 2, as well as Next Gen number 2, and these are 2 books that are dealing with different aspects of characters inside this Age of X-Men utopia, happening outside of the main Uncanny X-Men storyline that's being told by Matthew Rosenberg. So this is going to be dealing with Kurt and his illicit relationship with what appears to be Polaris, and then you've got the storyline of the Next Gen characters and how they're going to kind of grow and possibly revolt against the current society that they're in. Either way, if you're into Age of X-Men, these are books that you're going to be picking up. Otherwise, wait for the trade. It might come out in a really good collection that's going to allow you to read everything all at once. Also on the heels of our huge opening week and weekend, we get Captain Marvel number 3, which is continuing this kind of inside a bubble storyline where She-Hulk has finally broken through the barrier, but now Jennifer Walters is just plummeting to her death inside this dome-like structure where the revolutionaries of Captain Marvel are trying to take the battle to the oppressors. So Captain Marvel seems to be kind of interesting, but it's not really a comic book that's meant for me. However, I will check it out and see whether it's something something I should pick up or not. However, there was a book that I thought was pretty interesting, and that was Meet the Skrulls #1. The second issue comes out this week, and that is continuing the story of Robbie Thompson as he kind of smashes up the Skrull infiltrators with the Americans, this kind of Cold War espionage tale that is going to be dealing with characters and how they try to fit into society to get their own benefits. One of the biggest things is the interfamily relationships between these various characters of Carl, Gloria, Monica, and Alice, and their long-lost sister Ivy, or dead sister Ivy. There's a lot of stuff going on as they're hunted down by people of Project Blossom, and there's some more things to be found out. This has just started. Also, another book that just started is Savage Sword of Conan, and we get issue #3 from Jerry Dugan, and that's continuing to tell the tale of Conan the Barbarian. And Conan the Barbarian is appearing friggin' everywhere. He just made an appearance inside Avengers No Road Home, which we'll get to in a minute, and this is going to be another one of those tales because Marvel just regained the rights to Conan, so they're putting him in everything they possibly can. Gotta get that Conan money. But Savage Sword of Conan seems to be something that people are enjoying, so give it a shot if you really like the Barbarian. Another book from Marvel that people seem to be liking is West Coast Avengers, and that gets issue #9, where we're dealing with Kate Bishop as well as a whole bunch of other people that are currently on this team. And, of course, Jeff the Landshark, made famous by Gail Simone's Twitter feed, is, well, he's part of the team. However, we do have news that West Coast Avengers is not going to be continuing on much further in the run, possibly ending after issue #10. So get your fill of Jeff the Landshark and the West Coast Avengers team while you can. That being said, there is a family-friendly book that is going to be continuing on for the foreseeable future, and that is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #4. Lots of F's in that statement. So Tom Taylor's continuing to tell the tale of Peter Parker inside New York City as he found this brand new old hero, the Rumor, as she takes him to the undercity of New York. And now he's got to battle off a whole bunch of other stuff while that's going on. So we're going to see exactly what's continuing inside Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #4, and as a fan of Spider-Man, it's a book that I definitely have to pick up. But another book I've got to pick up is Avengers #17, which is continuing the Dracula Vampire Civil War storyline, which is going to be kind of a placeholder before we get to the War of the Realms, which is a really big deal inside Marvel. So while this might be a little bit more filler and a little bit less killer, the people inside the characters, they're actually pretty killer too, because you get a pretty huge dose of Blade and some development of the other characters. Some are going to be leaving the team for quite some time, some are going to be reunited, but this is still just a precursor, and Jason Aaron is going to have to conclude this story before we dive into the big battle between all the various realms. So if you like vampires and Blade, Avengers is your place for those guys. Speaking of War of the Realms, we do get Thor #11, which is a prelude to the War of the Realms, which has been a prelude inside Thor for like 5 years, but War of the Realms is finally going to be a thing. Or maybe we think so. We don't really know. We got to check out the previews and see exactly what this is going to have in store for us, but based on the storyline, you can't help but do War of the Realms now, just so that way people get some kind of intent as to where this story is going to go. There's been so much setup, and it's time to start lighting that match and setting off those firecrackers and getting this war going. Otherwise, man, why am I even going to be worrying about this book? I mean, if I wanted a dose of cosmic chaos, I could always go pick up Guardians of the Galaxy #3, which is going to be introducing the Dark Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the kill squad that is going to be heading out there to try and find Gamora and end her life before she can mess up the universe anymore. So you've got the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is going to be dealing with Peter Quill and Beta Ray Bill and all those guys, Phyla-Vell, and now you've got Guardian and a number of others that are going to be out there with Star Fox trying to take down Gamora before she can do any more harm. Donny Cates is writing this one, and obviously he has some sort of plan, some sort of mission for these various people before they start tackling Thanos in earnest. I think this is a book you really need to read, if only for the creative team of Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. They do a fantastic job in space, and it's one that I'm not going to miss. Another book I'm not going to miss is Immortal Hulk #15. After we saw the assassination of Betty Ross on accident in Immortal Hulk #14, you can check out the review on the channel, what we see is the explosion of the Immortal Hulk as he goes to take down this assassin. And who steps in but Doc Samson? And the cover that we get over here from Alex Ross shows Doc Samson doing some psychoanalysis on the Immortal Hulk, not just Bruce Banner. So we did see the glint of the red She-Hulk inside Betty Ross's eyes as she was possibly resurrected. This is going to be a book that you can't miss, especially if you're a fan of the Hulk. And if you're a fan of the Hulk, I don't know why you're not reading Immortal Hulk anyway. It's amazing. Next, we have everybody's favorite Spider-Man in Miles Morales' Spider-Man #5, written by Saladin Ahmed. And the reason I say he's everybody's favorite is because Into the Spider-Verse won a goddamn Oscar, and it's a phenomenal animated film. And if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it, or you should buy it, or do whatever you can to find that film. It's a great love letter to comic books and comic book characters. But inside Saladin Ahmed's Miles Morales Spider-Man, it's something completely different, and it doesn't seem to be associating so much with what's happening in Champions, where he made a deal with Mephisto. So If you're a fan of the character or you want to get into the character, this is where you're going to be finding the most of Miles Morales, but I'm going to have to reread some of this to see exactly whether it's a desirable storyline or might not be something for me. But either way, you're going to want to check it out. Also, I know we were talking about Conan earlier, but the real big Conan story is going to be in Avengers No Road Home #6, where we see Conan and Scarlet Witch inside the whole land of the Cimmerian, and I mean, I am so stoked on where this book is going to go. I was not expecting Conan to show up in the way that he did. I was expecting him to show up in a very different way, but with the Savage Avengers on the horizon, all this Conan stuff coming out from Jason Aaron and Jerry Dugan, and then the introduction of Conan into Avengers No Road Home, I mean, you can't escape the Barbarian, and he's hopefully going to play a pretty pivotal role inside this storyline. Given the love affair that Jim Zub has with the character, I'm excited to see what he does with him in this context. I'm also excited to see what Uncanny X-Men #14 continues to bring from Matthew Rosenberg and Salvador Larroca. It's a story of Cyclops and Wolverine and a bunch of rogue mutants that are trying to re-establish the X-Men and save the world, regardless of whether the world wants them to do it or not. They've been exposed, they now know that the X-Men are still alive and available and operating, so they're going to have to do this kind of secret. So it's like a secret X-Men. Not quite Secret Warriors, but not quite Uncanny X-Men. It's kind of complicated, but Uncanny X-Men continues to be a really stellar read for people that are fans of a little bit more old-school X-Men. But if you're talking about stellar reads, you need to talk about the symbiote, and Venom #12 is coming out, and we're continuing with the storyline where the Maker, and we've got the introduction of his young son, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on with Eddie Brock that is completely changing the game when it comes to the character, and it's one of the things that I love the most about Donny Cates' run on this entire series. He's taking it to a dark Cthulhu god kind of area, and he's giving Eddie so much character development, and the relationship with the symbiote is so different. It's so cool, and you can tell that he's a fan of the character and wants to bring out the most and give him his own little pocket corner of the Marvel Universe. And this variant cover that I've got right there, that by Ryan Stegman, is a really great Spider-Villains variant. I just love the look of it, and Stegman's one of my favorite artists, so you can't really go wrong picking up either of the covers or really picking up Venom ever. Now we're going to double back to DC for a little bit. We get Batman #67, which is continuing the Nightmares storyline, and this one should be dealing with the bachelorette party of Selina Kyle. So this is another one of Batman's nightmares, and we saw the question kind of dealing with Selina Kyle in the interview, but what's going to happen at her bachelor party, and how does that fit into Bruce Wayne's nightmares? Tom King's Tales of the Caped Crusader seem to be a bit touch and go recently. However, I think the Nightmares storyline is going to wrap up before we get into the Fall of the Fallen and the whole City of Bane storyline that's supposed to be ending the run. So I'm excited to see what kind of mental development we can give to Bruce as he tries to escape Bane's mental trap before we get to the real culmination of the entire series. Also, we have to talk about Justice League #20. Justice League #19 brought us Future Superman, as well as this kind of preview of the Justice League of Tomorrow, which included like a triumvirate of Flashes that were all one person, as well as the union of Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl and their son. There is so much shit going on inside the end of 19 going into 20 that you cannot avoid it. And then you've got Jorge Jimenez, who's been sharing this huge spread of the Justice League fighting the Justice League of Tomorrow, and now we find out that it's 3 covers that are all part of this kind of joining thing. So if you want that full phenomenal piece of artwork, you have to buy 3 different versions of the same comic book, which might just be worth it because Jorge Jimenez kicks ass when it comes to the Justice League art, but time will tell. Hopefully you can get it in some other way, but I might just be spending a little bit of extra money on Justice League this week. Now that we're pretty much done with ongoing comics, we can talk about the brand new #1s, and Spider-Man gets both. So, SpiderMan City at War, written by Dennis Hopeless, is taking the PlayStation 4 version of Spider-Man from the Spider-Man video game, and also kind of this Spider-Verse-y thing that just recently happened, and throwing him into his own comic book where we're telling the story of City at War. So hopefully it's going to be a good way to introduce that character into a place that is outside of the video game realm and not necessarily kind of a gimmick that was thrown into this Spider-Verse storyline that was written by Christos Gage. So hopefully we can develop that character a little bit more and then possibly have some influence on the video games versus being kind of subservient to the video games. The big one, though, is Spider-Man Life Story, written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Mark Bagley. And he's going to be taking a look at every decade of Spider-Man's existence, starting in the 60s, and then the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. So there's a lot that we really need to cover, and Chip Zdarsky is going back Spider-Man historian style and bringing all of that to the forefront. And I mean, I've already seen some of the variant covers for the other decades, and they pay so much homage to those various things. Mark Bagley is a classic Spider-Man artist, and Chip Zdarsky really has a feel for the character, especially after Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man, which he was doing a little while ago, which had some real groundbreaking things and really changed the relationship of a lot of different characters. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see how he interprets Spider-Man in his classical settings and whether it's going to change a little bit of the character or not. But I want to know what you guys are excited for this Wednesday, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books and more.